Hello people of the internet, my name is Edward and welcome to my channel. Here I hope to document the humbling, arduous but fun process that is running my own business. In today's video we're going to be talking about the 5 mistakes that I believe caused me to run my business into bankruptcy. So, if that's something you're interested in, please stick around and let's see what are those 5 mistakes. Now, because this is, by all intents and purposes, the first video I make on this subject and the first video I make for this channel, this is going to be a bit of a channel trailer as well as a topic video. So, what is the purpose or why am I opening this channel? Why do I want to have a channel where I talk about my business or my experience running a business? And in today's particular case, the failure in my business that I've had so far. Well, I believe that it is going to be a good process. It's going to be useful for me to look back at the things I've learned, the challenges I've overcome, and maybe give me some motivation when things get a little bit difficult. Things can really get difficult sometimes when you're running a business. But also, I really believe in trying to learn from other people's mistakes. So, with that logic, what I'm hoping for is that I discuss my mistakes or the issues I run into, and then maybe someone out there who's either already running their own business or thinking of running a business could learn from it and avoid those mistakes. And as well, if someone in the internet sees these and they're like, hey, I know how to deal with that problem, they can reach out, leave a comment and be like, oh, this is what you should be doing about that. So that's the logic. That's the reason. That's why we're here, and that's what the channel is going to be about. So welcome to my channel, welcome to the first video, and let's begin. So first, a little bit of background as to where I started, what business, and how I got to where I was. In 2017, which seems like an eternity when you think about everything that's happened between then and now, I decided that I wanted to start a business, but not just a business in anything. It wasn't like I decided, okay, I want to be a businessman and I'm going to run a business. It was more like I was teaching. I had been a teacher or a tutor, working in the education sector for a few years, and I really liked it. But I also felt like there was a lot more that I could contribute and a lot more value that I could provide to my students or people learning with me or from me that with me. I don't like to say from me because I do believe that education is a two-way street. But anyways, that's for another day. The point being that I really wanted to do something a little bit different, try to see if I could provide a bit more value to the profession by running my own school. And so I did it. 2017, when I was living in China, I started my own school. That's where I was living at the time, and I started my own school. Ooh, exciting. It was very exciting. And now let's see, well, what are the 5 mistakes that I made for that business that started in 2017 and that was going fairly well? What caused it to fail? What happened? What went wrong? Well, let's see. Number 1, I believe that the first mistake that I made was I brought too many people too early on onto the business. At the beginning, the very, very beginning, it was just me and my friend. Right? I had the idea, I thought I wanted to do this, I thought, okay, I think I know what I want to do, I think I more or less I had an idea and a plan. So I contacted a friend of mine who was also very interested in language learning. Her English was really good, she was Chinese, so we had a lot in common. We were very good friends because she helped me with my Chinese, I helped her with her English, but honestly, her English was great. And when we met, she was also a student, and we were both very interested in learning and education. So I contacted her and I was like, hey, let's do this together. How about, we run with this idea of mine and see where it goes, see where it takes us. And so we started actually from a Starbucks. Me and her, we contacted a few friends. She contacted a few friends of hers, and she told them, okay, so look, Edward is going to be running some classes. It's just going to be a weekend thing on a Friday after work. We're just going to meet weekly at this local Starbucks, and we're going to be doing some English. Who's going to help you? We'll see what your level is, etc., etc. The whole thing, right? And that's how it started. At first, just me and her. It was great. She just wanted to be still taking classes with me, but she wanted to be in charge of organizing the group a little bit. But she didn't want to get too involved business-wise. But things got really going and things were going well. The students liked it. My approach to teaching seemed to be resonating with them. It was going well. They liked it. And I feel like it got a bit out of hand. I got too excited with how well it was going. And so I believed, well, if I want to, expand, if I want to grow, reach more people, reach more students, well, I need more people, right? So I decided, okay, I'm going to get a manager, and I'm going to get more teachers, and I'm going to get probably also someone in charge of like curriculum and stuff. So at some point we were like, in the matter of a year and a half, or a year even, not a year and a half, there were 6 of us, I want to say, between other teachers, teaching assistants, myself, my friend from the beginning ended up being in charge of marketing, and then also someone that I hired to be the manager of the school, which was a bit strange because I was supposed to be the manager. I started the thing, so that was another problem. It wasn't very clearly defined. What did I say? Defined, not divine. Defined. It wasn't very clearly defined what everyone's role was, what every person's role was supposed to be. I was kind of like figuring out everything as I went, which it's very typical of a new business. But the problem is, I think I threw too much into the pot before I even knew what I was trying to cook. And so it became a big problem. People obviously looked to me for leadership, for clarity, for, what am I supposed to do? What is my job? What is not my job? What are my duties? Or what are you expecting of me? And I was a bit like, all over the place, started to lose grip of things, really started to lose control of, okay, well, you do this, no, you do this. And then my job became mostly just figuring out what everyone was supposed to be doing every day, at every moment, at every turn, which wasn't their fault. It was my fault because I brought them into a system that had no structure. So I believe that was mistake number 1. So that's number 1. Now on to number 2. Number 2, I was not a good manager. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it should be probably obvious by now to you when I said that I hired a manager, yet I was supposed to be the director, so I wasn't too sure where was the line, what were my duties, and what remained as my job to do as the director, and what was the job of the manager that I onboarded. Wasn't really clear. It wasn't very well structured. I had some idea, but it wasn't a very clear idea. So for the people that I brought in, right, this was a job for them. This was a job. But because I was very passionate about what I was doing, I somewhat believed in the back of my head, even though it sounds unreasonable, and when I say it out loud, I'm like, come on, you couldn't have expected such a thing. But I think to an extent that is how I behaved. That's what I did. That's what ended up happening. That I was projecting onto them the expectation of them to be as involved and as passionate about the business, about the school, as I was. And it was my project. It was my business idea. It was me who told them, hey, trust me, follow me, let's do this, right? And they did. They trusted me. But I think I mistook that trust in me for the same passion I had in the project, right? What I didn't understand at the time is that they trusted me. They believed in what I was saying, and that I was saying, I have an idea, and I have a vision, and I have a plan of how to bring that about life, how to bring that into realization. And that was a huge mistake, because then at times I found myself very confused as to why people were not spending more time than they already were into trying to figure out solutions for the problems. The thing is, well, this was a job for them, and they were surely very dedicated. I have to say, to an extent, that exacerbated the problem. I was very lucky that my friends, because they are my friends, that I was working with were really into what we were doing, and they really believed in my ideas, and so they really dedicated way more time than they had to, way more time and resources of their own than anyone could have expected them to, and they shouldn't have to. It was my responsibility. I told them, hey, follow me, let's do this, right? And I think I didn't quite understand the responsibility that I was meant to shoulder when I told them, follow me, let's do this business thing, right? I thought we're all equals in this, and that's not really the case. That's not really how it is. It's just bad leadership. It was bad leadership. That's what I believe was my mistake number 2, and a really big one. a really big one. So that's why I put these two up front, because I feel like those were the biggest problems, biggest mistakes, especially that those were things that I should have figured out before I even started bringing more people in. So that was mistake number 2. Number 3 is about expansion of the business itself. We've already talked about how I brought too many people on board, how I was not a very good leader, not a very good manager, and I did not manage the expectations that I had of people and the jobs that they were assigned to do, and that weren't very clear through my own fault. In this case, now we're going to be talking about the business itself, the operations, so to speak. It was a school, right? It was a school. I'm not going too much into detail of what exactly the business is or how it runs in the background, because it's all about education, and I feel like this channel is mostly going to be about the business side of things, not so much about the educational content. For that, I have my channel where I talk about education, which feel free to check it out if you're into language learning, Lantic Academy on YouTube, or Lantic Academy on Instagram as well. Follow me there, get in touch. Yeah, when it comes to this mistake number 3, the expansion of the operations of the business, we found a lot of success at the beginning with what we were doing. People really liked it. I have to say, modesty aside, I'm a really good teacher, and usually my students really enjoy my classes. They really like the approach that I have, because mostly my approach tends to be very focused on the needs of my students rather than what is my teaching style or teaching methodology. I don't believe in one method or one style. And above all, I believe that my students and what they need is what's most important for me, right? How to help them achieve what they want, rather than telling them, hey, listen to me, I'm the teacher, do as I say. I really don't like that. So for that reason, I feel like a lot of my students were people who had tried learning a language before with another teacher or in a school, or even, in the education system. And they couldn't, they didn't manage, or maybe it wasn't as good as they thought it was going to be, or they needed to get better, but, they were stuck on their own. They didn't know what to do. They felt lost. And in my teaching method, or in my approach to education, they found this new way that really helped them. And I feel like this is how things more or less keep going with me and my teaching. Need to drink. It's rather than being bloopers. I like bloopers. I love bloopers. I don't know what is it, but like this 90s, early 2000s, it's more like early 2000s, things in the movies at the very end where they put the bloopers. Oh, I love that. That was my favorite part of movies. Yeah, I don't know, I like it. Do you like bloopers? Let me know. Do you like bloopers? Do you know what I'm talking about? When, the takes of the movie that don't end up working because someone made a mistake or they were funny. I love those. These are my bloopers. Welcome to my bloopers. But anyways, where was I? Yes, the success that we found at the beginning was very encouraging. I was very happy. I was so happy that people were liking what we were doing. People liked what we had to offer. And to me, that was so important. Because something that I feel like it's important to say is that when I started in business, I didn't do it because I liked business. I did it because I loved teaching. I loved education. And starting a business in education was the way that I could gain even more control of my teaching, of the approach that I used. Because obviously, when I worked at a private school or when I worked at the university, I had to follow a curriculum. I had to follow the method and the approach that I was, told to follow. And so for that reason, it's not like I believe myself above, a board of educators that have come up with this. But sometimes, unfortunately, it can be a bit restrictive when it comes to education and what you can and can't change in order to benefit the student. It wasn't really about me. It's not that I believed that I was a better teacher than what they were telling me to do. It was more like sometimes what they were telling me to do didn't work for my student, but my student had to take a test. My student had to pass, had to get a grade. And so whether or not it was working for them was irrelevant. And that saddened me a lot. I really wanted to help my students improve for what they wanted, for what they needed, not for the sake of an exam, for the sake of a grade. That really isn't what I'm about when it comes to education. And so I was really happy to see how well received what we were doing was. Parents that brought us their children, they loved it, adults as well. And for me, I come from a family that we had to struggle, really, really struggle when I was younger, to put enough money together to pay for a tutor or or to pay for, extra classes or weekend lessons for me to learn English. It was a struggle. My parents, did not have money to spare just laying around. So it was really an effort, a family effort, to put that money together and hope that whoever we trusted with, that money to teach me or my sisters was actually good at it. Was actually gonna deliver on what they promised, and it wasn't all just marketing. So for that reason, from that perspective, I took very seriously the fact that people trusted me and us and our business, the fact that they gave our business their hard-earned money in order to help them get education, in order to help them achieve those goals, learn that language, or to help them teach their children, especially for children. As parents, I imagine, I'm not a parent myself, but I can only imagine from seeing my mom and my dad and how hard they worked and how much they wanted to help us have a great future and better life opportunities, and how education was such an important part of that plan for them. I really value how, to parents, it's a big effort, it's a big sacrifice, and it matters a lot where they put that trust, right? For someone to teach their children, for someone to spend an hour, half an hour, 2 hours teaching their children, right? And so I didn't take that lightly, and the fact that it was succeeding and they liked it and we were achieving our goals and children were improving and they were happy, they were enjoying and they were learning, that was great to me. The problem was that my mistake in here was that I did not consolidate that success that we initially had. Instead of consolidating that success and being like, okay, this is doing really well at this location. We had a small school in one location in a neighborhood in the city where I lived. Instead of just, being like, yeah, let's hold on to this one and, drive through, keep on going and, really make something out of this. I thought, well, this is doing so well, we should try to expand. We should try to have it somewhere else, reach more people, right? And so we decided to open another branch in another neighborhood, in another part of the city, another part of town. And so now we have 2 branches. And unfortunately, because the city where I lived, well, most cities in China are huge, but this city where I lived was, also really big city. And the 2 places that we had were both in very, very different ends of the city. So then the team, which was me, the manager, the teachers, the assistants, they had to split their time in between these 2 opposite locations, and that just strained all of our skills, all of our energy, all of our time, and it just made it very difficult for everyone to keep doing what we had been doing to the level that we had been doing it. So I suppose, the quality took a hit of what we were doing, because I thought that it was time to expand. Once again, I took a step too early and did not really consider what the consequences of that were going to be. And, well, that was a big problem. Number four is interesting because I feel like, and when I was thinking about this and what I was going to say, what I wanted to say, what my 5 points were going to be, I thought of this one and I was like, wait, isn't this like a direct contradiction of what I just said of number 3? Because number 4 is, to say it in an expression, because I really like analogies and common expressions and these kind of things. I had all my eggs in one basket. That was a huge mistake. But how does that align with what I said before, that we expanded too fast? Well, you see, I expanded too fast, yes, but I expanded on the same services, on the same approach to the business, right? So we expanded on the same thing, on the same premise of, tuition at a location. Now we had, instead of 1 branch that we could grow and, make very popular and very good, we had 2. So we took all the resources we had, divided them into half, split them into half and doubled the workload for everybody. The expectations and the amount of stuff to keep up with just doubled from one day to the next. And even as a business, the amount of expenses that I had now were doubled. So that was a huge mistake. But on the other side, on point number 4, well, I had all my eggs in one basket. All I was doing was the same thing, just tuitions. And because it was all growing so fast and so big, if that one thing went wrong, if that one thing failed, then that was it. It was all gone. I didn't have Another thing that maybe it was growing a lot smaller, a lot slower, maybe using only one member of the team, maybe just something I was doing, with whatever time I had left. Maybe only one of my team of 5 or 6 people could have been working on. No, I put everyone into the same thing, teaching and lessons, and that was it. There was no other service, there was no other product, no other way in which we could diversify how we made money, how the business made money, so that if there was a problem with this one, then we had that to rely on. There was nothing like that. So yeah, I had all my eggs in one basket. And then, when the basket broke, all the eggs fell, and they all broke too. Now on to number 5, and the last of this list of terrible, terrible mistakes that I made that drove me to my business going into bankruptcy. Number 5, let's talk about this one from the perspective of a book that I read not too long ago that I really like. The name of the author is Chris Hadfield. He was an astronaut pilot, a brilliant man, and he wrote a book called An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And it's brilliant. I love it. I read this book. I really liked it. I read it when I was at university. And one of the things he talked about was to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Right? And I'm obviously paraphrasing here. That's not exactly the quote. I didn't write down the quote. Maybe I should have done that. I'll do that next time. But that's more or less what he says. He talks about how in his training as an astronaut, and even before that as a pilot, he was used to it. They get them used to always planning for the absolute worst case scenario. Always planning for thinking of, okay, well, I'm about to do this, what could go wrong? And how wrong could it go? And what will happen if? And asking all of these questions. And that might seem a bit like, you're just kind of like psyching yourself, you're just panicking unnecessarily. Not really, because that's what the other half of the phrase comes in. Hope for the best. So it's not about being a pessimist, it's not about being negative, it's about simply ask yourself, what is the absolute worst that could happen? And if it did happen, what would I do? What could I do? Right? What would be plan B, plan C? Right? Well, that gives you a certain sense of control, right? Knowing that things could go wrong, and that is out of your power, that is out of your control. You can't control everything, but you can control how well prepared you feel for the situation. But also, keeping in mind that, you're going to be positive, you're going to hope for the best. You're going to hope that the best case scenario is what does end up happening, but just in case, you were ready for something else. You were ready to react, to change, to adapt. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't really think about that. When I started this business, I was like, okay, it's all in. We're going all in no matter what. And yes, of course, there is a thing that it's important to believe in what you're doing and to commit to it, to fully commit to it. But by not having spent any time thinking, what if this goes wrong, that goes wrong, that goes wrong, what would I do? And let's write down a plan. Let's come up with a plan. I was unprepared. I wasn't ready for things to go wrong. And of course, many of the things that went wrong, apart from all the things on this list that I've already mentioned, many of the things that went wrong were also completely outside of my power and my influence and weren't exactly due to my mistakes. For example, it was the very beginning of the pandemic when the business totally just went bankrupt and we had to close and it all ended. No one could have seen that coming and there was nothing I could have done about it. But if I would have thought of, what is the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen is that I lose all my customers and I go bankrupt. What then? Then maybe I would have had another plan. If that happens, then I'll do this, then I'll do that, then I'll do that. Maybe I would have actually reflected on these mistakes that I've just talked about and been like, that could happen. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Or maybe I should have these planned, right? I feel like there are a lot of maybes and a lot of ifs. And I'm not one for wondering, what if? I don't like to spend too much time onto that because, holding on to the past and, coming up with hypothetical scenarios where things didn't go wrong is not that useful if you're just doing it for the sake of feeling sorry for yourself or just for the sake of not letting go. Then it's important to let go. It's important to move on. It is. However, it's also important to look back and try to learn whatever lessons we can from the mistakes we've made, I believe, right? In my humble opinion, that's what I think. And that's why I like to look back at my mistakes, mistakes I've made and try to learn from it. And that was, well, lesson number 5. That was mistake number 5. I had no plan B. I had no what if, I had no break glass in case of emergency scenario thought out. And so the only thing that I was doing of Chris Hadfield's advice was hoping for the best, but that was not very good. It didn't work. I hoped for the best, and it wasn't the best what happened. It was really good for some time. It was really, really good. And I'm really proud of what I did, of what we did, of what we achieved, me and my friends and the team we put together. Really proud of that. But in the long run, it didn't work because I did not prepare for the worst. So there you have it. Those are my 5 mistakes that I believe, if I had to summarize it into 5 single mistakes, those would be the 5 that I would say, yeah, there you go. That's what I did wrong. That's where I went wrong. And that's why a business that I was really happy with, that I was really proud of, that I was putting so much work into, so many hours, well, unfortunately, went bankrupt. I lost it all. So, well, I think that's it. I don't want to hold you for too long. I don't want to waste your time. So, yeah, as you probably by now can tell, what this channel is going to be about is about that. It's about business. It's about my experiences running my business. Right now, I have a different business. I'm running it again. Something in education, in language learning, teaching languages, Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin, and English is what I teach. But it's completely separate from that. That was that, mistake, big thing. We probably could talk about it more, but going forward, we're going to be talking about a bit of both. A bit about, what happened there. We could go into more details if you so want to. If you have more questions, please feel free to ask. And also, we're going to be talking about what I'm actually doing now. What is the new business and how does it run? And what am I doing on a day-to-day? What decisions do I need to make? What about paying taxes? What about getting an accountant? What about getting registered? What about this and that? And all these kind of questions. So if you have any of these questions, if you're running a business, a small business, if you're starting, if you're planning to start, if you have questions, leave them in a comment under this video down below. It is a very useful tool we can use to communicate, to talk to each other. So if you have any questions, leave them there. If you have any suggestions of videos you would like me to make, things you would like to know about my business or about myself, leave it there. Give a like and subscribe. If you like this kind of content, subscribe so we can meet again and see what the next video will be about.